Directors.
Hello, Dean.
It's got to move. There we go. So with this operations report, the end of the year happening December 2024 gives me an opportunity to run through some of the work order and service request information from mobile MMS. So right out of the gate, this is December of 24. Service requests were the majority. Check for leaks were the majority of service requests for the month of December 2024. And then moving on, service requests, category check for leak was the winner for the year 2024 with 526 service requests check for leaks, which is huge. And then moving on, leak checks by month. September went out, 77 requests for leak check in the month of September. As you can imagine, we're in the slow season for leak checks because of the amount of groundwater and water on the ground. It kind of keeps them somewhat at bay. And then work orders by crew, the mechanics and the collections crew by far knocked out the majority of the work orders by crew. The mechanics took that away. 323 work orders completed. Mechanics also had 17 work orders completed for the month of December. As far as 2024 work orders by type, preventative maintenance work orders were one out with 321, and then followed by repair of 267, and then inspections with 100. So there's all manner of categories of these work orders, but it's important to note that PM and inspection are right up there at the top. Ebbs Pass had 1,400 plus underground service alerts. So most of these require some sort of positive response to the requester about what's going on with piping in the ground. And that's a lot. Jenny Lynn also followed that up to 921. So this is a lot of work. And then when you look at production versus consumption, district-wide, where you can see the green is the consumption and blue is production. And you can see that depending on what happens operationally at a treatment facility, our staff will fill up the distribution system, or they'll run the distribution system low, depending on whatever the work effort might be, whether it be at a tank or at the water treatment plant, what have you. But overall, consumption is pretty much uniform, and it's the production versus consumption is right around 30% for the district. And then we have a breakdown of all the different systems, but I didn't go into detail on these. But you can see, there's some anomalies that we have to parse out and get rid of to improve the accuracy of the data. So it's like throw out the high, throw out the low, but it does give you a general idea of production versus consumption.
Damon, can I ask a question? I'm sorry
Yeah.
if it's goofy.
Yeah.
I know we were trying to look at, our production versus our consumption to determine a loss.
That's
Would
correct.
that say that's all loss, or is there some stored somewhere? So that's not an accurate representation of the loss. It may not look as bad in the
That's
loss.
correct. Absolutely right.
Okay.
So it's also built on how well people quantify water that's unaccounted for, say, through a water meter. So if there's a leak and our staff estimate, hey, there was 20,000 gallons that came out of this leak, and we have a way to quantify that and pull it into the production versus consumption, we can. We don't generally have that yet. We do with construction meters. So if somebody has a hydrant meter for a construction project, that information gets incorporated into production versus consumption, as does water use at district facilities. Not completely, though. We do have a fair amount of different district facilities that we need to put water meters at so we can quantify their use.
So I heard you say 30%. Is that all loss, would you say?
That is all loss and unaccounted for water. That number will improve over time as we.
What is
Yeah.
What is a water district's goal? What's an acceptable?
So you're on fire if you're at 20% or below. You're like,
You're doing good.
you're
Oh,
really tight. You have a tight system.
okay. So we got
So
a little ways to go.
We got a little bit of work to do, but we're not where we were prior to AMI.
Can you tell me what
Not
it
even,
costs
not even close.
to produce our water?
I can't tell you off the top of my head per gallon.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's the variable costs are in our water loss spreadsheets, which we submit to the state annually. And that cost is quantified there. We can
Okay.
get you that information pretty easily.
Okay. Thank you.
I got a question. If you go back a couple slides to the West Point one,
Yeah.
Well, that one right there, Jenny Lynn, and if you
Right.
look at that dip on use and then go to the one before it. That dip on use, there, what's going on in those two systems in West Point here and in Jenny Lynn where use would get down to, zero or real close to nothing.
So most likely that's going to be an inability for the AMI system to grab all of the data
Oh,
for that
so-
period of
okay,
time.
that
Yeah.
makes sense.
So you throw out the look, like, yeah, that's what I mean. So like if, for example, if we have trouble grabbing all the reads from one of the systems for whatever reason, there's a storm or there's some sort of issue that's happening. This will still grab that information and push it up against production. Because
Okay.
it's on every single day at midnight, it's going to grab this information.
Okay, one more question.
Yeah.
That peak at the very beginning there, the tallest peak on the left-hand side,
Yeah.
left top. And when use is going to be going down or should be expected to go down from there, why so much production there?
That there could be a lot of reasons as to why. There could have been a project where we had, say we're gonna have folks working on a filter at the water plant. So the operators are just gonna fill everything up. They don't care what demand is. They're
Okay,
gonna try to ride it out if there's an issue that comes from.
all different kinds of variables.
There could be a whole host of things, right, that
Right.
come into that. Yep, absolutely.
If I could interrupt you real quick here, Damon, I just want to point out, I mean, I think I want to highlight this in the reports that Kelly Richards and Kelly G give and what Damon has incorporated in his reports. I think I think sometimes hear us being accused of not being responsive enough to the requests from the community or requests from the board to improve the amount of information that we're sharing. And I think our staff have actually done a really phenomenal job of that over the last couple of years. We have brought a lot of those recommendations forward, but I think this is also a good example of why we don't just put it on the website, because it requires explanation. It requires context. There's never perfect data and often requires an expert like Damon to be able to provide the context for what the data show. And, so I just want to make sure we point out, we didn't have anything close to this 2 years ago. And
Yeah.
we've come, I think, leaps and bounds since then. So I just think Damon and Kelly in particular deserve a lot of credit for that.
Well, I really like these reports here. I think these really tell a story, and that's
Right.
nice. Thank you.
It's a confusing story though.
So-
Not
Yeah, yeah,
really.
yeah. Yeah.
Hey,
And,
Damon, where did this term dashboard come from?
I'm not sure.
Go to some other water websites. You're going to see it say dashboard, by the way.
I heard it,
Couple of them.
I heard it being kicked around here a couple of years ago. So anyway. Thanks. Nice information.
Yeah, and Rebecca had the great point of, perhaps this can sit alongside the lists of the work efforts that we all do out in the ops department, and then the production numbers in the written document that you all receive every month from operations as well. Okay, so some familiar images here. We have a Bluebell repair in Davidson Court and Rancho Calaveras. So we're diving right in. You can see that there's a T on this Bluebell line on the left that was damaged. And you see the repair in the image on the right with some Romax and some couplings and a T. Emergency repair of another 2-inch Bluebell up in Ute Place and Evans Fast. And you can see, as you guys have seen, I'm sure multiple times, water main break or water service line leak can happen in any number of ways. Luckily, this one was off the shoulder a little bit, but it's definitely pushing a lot of water out of the ground. As you can see in the image on the left, as the distribution operators excavating that hole and there's just water boiling out. The image on the right as well, as you can see it running down the ditch and down the road. And there you go. That's what it's looking like. The image on the left, just spraying out of that 2-inch. And then the pipe is shut down in the image on the right. And then we can go ahead and pull that 2-inch line out in the image on the left. It now has what's called the cheese touch. Stay away from that thing. And then you put a new service 2-inch line in the image on the right and live to fight another day. It's another day up on the Evans Pass distribution. Here we are at fire hydrant repair on Manzanita. So invariably, fire hydrants do get knocked off their flange, their breakaway flange from time to time. And hopefully the shoe holds at the base of the hydrant and doesn't shoot water 50 feet in the air. Sometimes it does. Leak repair or leak failures do too at times. Usually on a Sunday and late afternoon. But anyway, so our guys do a great job of responding to these kinds of issues and putting fire hydrants back in service. Incidentally, Chief Johnson and I talked yesterday, Fire Chief for Evans Pass Fire District. They completed their fire hydrant maintenance, the most they have done since he has been the fire chief. And so the relationship tightens between CCWD and our fire protection friends. And we anticipate having some meetings at the end of January to talk about fire hydrant maintenance and what to look for and how to effectively operate our hydrants.
What's the cost?
$25 per
Still-
hydrant. Yeah.
We're still
Yep.
keeping it at that. Yeah.
It's still there. Knock on wood, the chiefs don't show up come budget time this year to talk about that. Here's some routine maintenance. You can see what some of our meter boxes would look like without some backfill and some cleanup in the image on the right. And then our guys come in and put some boards and put some soil around that box so it doesn't rock, it doesn't move. Nobody trips over it when they're walking around their property.
That's root stabilization for that tree right there. You're
There you
jumping in
go.
forest.
Absolutely right. Bear Creek diversion, you guys have heard of this one many times. We've done some FEMA funded debris cleanup twice down there, actually. We actually have a project that is obligated for 50 grand from FEMA, but Bear Creek never dried up last year, so we weren't able to get in there and clean out the debris. So we put in a time extension request with FEMA. Nonetheless, our guys go down there and they clean up access because storms, as you all know, can drop branches and trees and make it hard to get where we need to go. And then moving on, more work from our construction crews. So there's a fill station up on Hogan Dam Road. I'm sure many of you know of. It was dribbling for a little while. And then folks drove in there and just destroyed the asphalt and base rock below because it was just super saturated. And so I don't have an after pick, but our guys went in there, cleaned that up through a trench breakdown and reestablished that fill station. So make it accessible again. And then PG&E came in and put in our gas meter for our standby generator next door here at the shop. And we're coordinating startup with Bay City Electric to run the generator, but the generator is in the standby position and the gas valve is on. So that's good news.
So that took a dedicated meter for that?
Yeah, yep. So our electricians every year towards the end of the year work through flow meter calibrations. And you can imagine, these are flow meters for treatment facilities, lift stations, what have you. We have quite a few, and our guys do a great job of calibrating these flow meters, and we submit those to the state every year. A lot of work has been associated with radio programming for two-way radio communications this year. Put these two-way radios in the trucks. Our objective is to have handhelds for folks. So, if there's something that's really a real emergency and it's going to last for days, Michael can take a handheld radio home and understand what's going on, even, when he needs time to take a rest. And same with staff. And we're looking at reestablishing base stations and customer service as well. So this is a safety component, this is emergency response, and this is effective ops all rolled into one. And then just kind of an example of what our electricians and instrumentation techs do on the daily. Forest Meadows wastewater treatment plant, they can remotely dive into the programmable logic controller, PLC. They can see issues and they can correct them from their workstations. They could be in Jenny Lind or at the training centers, for example, correct an issue over in Forest Meadows, which is what's illustrated here. And so this is looking down the stem of that fire hydrant on Manzanita down into the chute of the fire hydrant.
Deep.
Yeah,
The-
so you're gonna see the thank you slide is gonna be quirky, deep, or interesting moving forward. Just
So Damon, I have a question on, how you give out everything you guys did, which is
Yeah.
always a lot. Under the West Point wastewater treatment plant, the consolidation is almost complete. Paving is complete, awaiting the completion of the electrical improvements. Are we planning some kind of a tour or some kind of something for the public to see, you know, where some grant dollars went for work and I'd like to see it all
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, I think we've had various discussions about a ribbon cutting ceremony or something
Yeah,
along those lines up
yeah.
there. And we're getting really close to the point, and maybe wait for the weather a little bit
Oh,
longer,
yeah,
but,
yeah.
and we're not quite ready to cut the ribbon on it yet.
Yeah,
but,
wait for the
uh,
weather.
We're
but
absolutely looking
Invite
forward to
the
that.
public and
Yeah.
do some short little tours to show them what's
Absolutely.
going on.
Which one was it?
The consolidation, right?
Yeah, so
Oh,
Wilseyville,
yeah.
yep, waste plant consolidated into the West Point wastewater treatment facility, yep.
Yeah. Very cool. When is it gonna be done? It's almost done.
A few more months.
Yeah, so electrical panels, end of January, and then, yeah, a couple more months.
Spring.
Should be done.
Unless,
It'll be perfect, you
the
know?
caveat there is unless we have further, supply chain delays with the electrical components, because that's why it's not done already. It would have been done by now.
I am planning a trip in mid-May. Just keep that.
We'll certainly
posted.
coordinate with you on that, yeah.
I want to be there.
Well, everyone will plan around that.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? You guys get to do it.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Hey, guys, let's.
Oh, no, I'm just interested in how's your overtime?
Our overtime, knock on wood, has been great. We, you know, it's interesting you bring that up. We have some supervisors, field supervisors who pay very close attention to their staff's overtime. And it's a continual conversation between myself, Pat, Jesse, and those supervisors. And generally, overtime will be driven by
The weather.
emergencies and issues, right? And that's why knock on wood, we don't have, I mean, we're not into February yet. Every year from 2017 till now, I think of February 10th and February 12th. Atmospheric river storms, 2 years apart, which kind of changed my perspective on how much water can flow through.
Oh, right.
Weather.
I remember those
So
conversations. Yeah.
I'm, you know, don't hold your breath, but as of right now, we're great.
Okay.
Damon, I think what's on most people's minds is the overnight anyway, the development of these huge fires and stuff in LA. And what kind of jumped off the screen earlier today was an operations manager of a water district down there talked about how they had 3 million gallon tanks, 3 of them. And one of them went out, emptied at 4 o'clock, another one emptied at 10 o'clock at night, and another one at 3 o'clock in the morning. And this discussion about, you know, when you're using an urban water system to fight a wildland fire, and you don't have the ability to fly and drop or you know, have helicopters or whatever because of various reasons. My question is, should we be looking at additional storage or you know, I mean, we balance the system for water consumption, I think has been the general rule, but I guarantee you that people in LA are going to be looking for, you know, an extra margin of safeties for fire protection. So is that warranted to think about?
Well, I think a couple things. I think one, the fact that they are not near a wildland urban interface, so firefighters can't take advantage of maybe some of the ponds or dip sites that they can in our neck of the woods,
Mhm.
makes it a little less of an important issue for us, but we have discussed that with fire chiefs. They do make tanks that you can connect to your potable system. If you have the real estate near a tank, you can actually position them next to a water tank and they fill automatically. They're open to the atmosphere. So it becomes not potable and it's a dip site. So if, you know, for example, if they're sized to fill a helicopter, so they have the volume or a water truck, depending on how you're going to orient these things. And so the chiefs right now are like, those are great. We're curious about that, but not yet. We think we can use enough dip sites and then take advantage of your system to help augment our firefighting effort. But I wouldn't be surprised if in the future we do look at implementing some of those.
There is, I read in, I think a CSDA magazine, an article with some pictures in the Ventura area where they have, you know, where it's kind of like you're talking about, where it's urban meets a lot of houses. They have the helicopter can just set down for a second and it fills his tank up really quickly. And it's not a dip. With a dip, you don't get nearly as much as you would with one of these things. I have no idea what the cost is. They didn't go into that, or if it was, but that just seemed like, I mean, between West Point and Arnold, there's, I don't know if we own any land in there, have access to any land in that area, but it seems like, and you're right, we do have a lot of ponds. But if there was interest in the fire, the state fire, the state fire people, the county fire people, and us to collaborate, to do something like that, that's what it took with, in this, down in Southern California. I think it's one of the San Diego areas.
They had set SDG&E, I know, and kind of innovated those in their rapid fill for helicopter tankers essentially. And they're expensive, including the water infrastructure that's required to get there to fill that quickly. But it's, yeah, I think at this point,
Well-
we're always open to talking to the fire chiefs about
Yeah.
what they need.
That seems to be a fire department expense.
Right. Not ours.
But
But it would involve.
listen, I just not to fall too far off the rails here, but I had thoughts about watching the fires again today. And I just wonder, and I'm, one of the things I'm very, very proud of here is, all of our backup generators. I wonder how many of those utilities, like in Maui, and now down south, I wonder if the reason that they can't keep up is when the power goes out, they have no means of pumping. I actually would like to see a review of that sometime. When in one of your guys' forums, when we're talking about that, I'd love to find out, do a forensic of these communities that have burned to the ground and find out if they invested in the backup generators to keep the water on.
Right, like a Yorba Linda kind of scenario.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, at Paradise and
Right,
and,
yeah.
Maui,
Yeah, right.
because I remember seeing, when the Maui thing was going on, I don't remember seeing water flowing at all.
Right.
And the power went out, and I just wonder if they had made that investment in the backup generators,
Right,
because I think it's another thing that we want to be able to tell our folks is that we've made that investment, and we're continuing to make it. We're continuing to keep those upgraded, and the Copperopolis was a great example. I mean, we were able to manage those and keep them rolling. And so they did have a water supply, but I wonder how many of these catastrophic urban fires, they didn't invest in the backup generators and the water supply stopped. Just
yeah,
my curiosity.
I'll look into that for sure.
Anything else for Damon?
Thank
Are you still going or are you good?
I'm good.
All right,
That's
so
a
are we
question.
then.
I have a question.
I'll go ahead, Francisco.
Back, Damon, on your charts on production versus consumption, what happens to the difference between the two? Where does that water go?
What do you mean? Like,
Well, you showed a
There's-
chart, so this is how much production we did in this area, and this.
Right. so it's unaccounted for water. So if you were to complete a water loss audit spreadsheet, you would do your best effort to quantify the water that's not captured in MMS, not on that visual that you saw. So you would have discussions with your staff, and if there was a work order that's on paper that says, hey, this leak was 180,000 gallons, you're going to incorporate that into your water loss spreadsheet. If you're not, right. So we're not capturing that yet on the production versus consumption that you see on our on the mobile MMS or our work order system, but we do capture that when we report annually to the state.
It just seems that it was in the upwards of 40%, and that production costs us dollars, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah. No.
we'll get more data later. My second
Yes.
question, second question has to do with, it's been several months since I brought up the fact that my consumption meters are not working reliably. And I was told that, it's a one-off, or it'll be temporary, or we'll get to it, or what have you. And I've set alerts to be alerted daily so that I can test it. And I've gotten 3 alerts in like about the last 4 months. So is it a systemic problem, or is it just a local problem with my meter and my particular node?
Well, yeah, unfortunately for you, Francisco, I think it's really isolated. That doesn't mean we can't dive in and better understand why it's continuing to not happen. Yeah. So, yeah, more work to do on. I'll definitely dive in and reach out to Mueller on that one, and we'll get some resolution for you for sure.
Thank you. And lastly,
Where's the closest repeater to Hillview?
I think it's up on Ross Drive. I know there's one on Emirath for sure, like a collector, like,
Yeah, that's what I'm just
Yeah, like
curious. I
big,
mean,
one. Yeah, there's one on Emirath over there near Ross Drive, so it's not too far away.
is there, does that require a line of sight or?
Generally, no.
Anyway, you had another one, Francisco?
Yeah, Damon and I have been trading emails on a subject that I'm sure is going to come up on your dashboard or agenda item. It's called PFAS and PFOAS. And he assured me that we've looked at the source water PFAS contamination and we've got nothing to worry about. But I asked, you know, some of the reasons that some communities are experiencing PFAS contamination is because they're recipients of the effluent that is produced by wastewater plants that is then used as fertilizer in areas that is contributing to pollution of their well water. And I'm wondering, do we know how much PFAS we're spitting out of our waste treatment plants? And I don't think the work's been done yet because it's a work in progress, but I think it's something that's coming down the pike that's going to be a cost driver.
Yeah, that's something that Francisco and I discussed is wastewater analysis for PFAS to understand what the potential could be. Currently, none of our source water supply, Wallace being groundwater and the other ones essentially being snow melt, show any detection level of PFAS, PFOAS at all. So, but Francisco does bring up a good point. We should look at wastewater effluent to understand if potentially there is PFAS in the wastewater stream. Could ultimately end up.
Does San Andreas sanitary?
That's true. Yeah.
So that has a potential to affect inland water treatment.
That's true. You're right. Yeah.
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 So that's really the only opportunity. And so that would be the only location that we would check, I presume.
Yeah.
Pardon? I'm sorry. what?
Well, our city,
I think you're talking about tertiary effluent.
Yeah.
Anywhere we discharge tertiary effluent.
We would want to look at that. Yes. Also from what are we going to be a contributor? But right. Yeah. City of Angels Camp would be 6 Mile.
Discharge.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Tell right. Yeah.
Well, does the process that we use at La Quintana and then spray on the golf course, does that get rid of PFAS?
No.
No.
PFAS is very, very small.
Yeah, so it's gonna be, why wouldn't we be looking at La Quintana and?
Anywhere we discharge tertiary effluent. we-
Yeah.
we-
That's next, right? And so, yeah, I stand corrected. Yeah, not snow melted Hogan necessarily, not necessarily snow
Right.
melt until it, but feels like snow.
All right. Anything else, Francisco?
No, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, David. Good job.
Thank you.
Thanks.